Hiya, my name's David. I'm the Wandering Ponderer. Today I'm out in the park, but I'm here for a specific reason. Historically, not so much to do with the park, but to do with recreation, leisure. This area, which is West Street, and I will show you. Here, it's the Co-op, and that's a telephone exchange just there. What used to be there originally at the Co-op was a petrol station, a cafe, and believe it or not, Coggeshall's one and only cinema. The local history books don't give you an exact time when that cinema was built. As you can see by the photographs, it's only a small little thing, as is the garage, but all garages were like that in those days. Next to the cinema, you can see in the picture the little black shed on the edge of the cinema. In that picture was Edna's Cafe. I don't know whether it was called Edna's Cafe at the time that picture was taken, but there is another picture I'll put up. But my focus really is on the cinema, because in World War II, when this cinema was operating in the 1930s, it was a means of communication to the general public. We had Pathé News, which was a big cinematic news program that used to run during the cinema's time, and used to give us, well, the sort of news that we get now on the TV, filmed reports, and they used to give you reports of how the armed forces were doing during the war. But like all news during wartime, most of it was propaganda, because they were aware there were Germans, spies living in England and at the time, so they weren't going to tell you up-to-date events, and they were going to spin it in a way that news propaganda during wartime usually has to do. A, to keep the population encouraged and not disheartened, and B, to keep the enemy guessing as to what's really going on. The cinema. And in the 1930s, the sort of films, well, you can see on that photograph, when that photograph was taken, there's a film poster out there. I was tempted to put my own poster of what sort of film, if I was a filmmaker in those days, what sort of film I would put up. I might even do that in this video. Superimpose my poster on that. Back in the day, when I first started work at the age of 15, I started working in a cinema in a town called Dorking as a trainee projectionist. So I got to know most of the projection equipment that was used, and this was back in 60s, sort of 70s era, and I got to see some of the earlier equipment that dates back to the 30s, that what most likely would have been used at this cinema here when it was around. Simplex projectors, very old projectors. The light wasn't a bulb like you get in modern projectors now, but it was a carbon arc lamp technology that was in the lamp housing that was put on the back of these projectors to show the film on the screen. So you were basically staring at a picture that was lit up by a carbon arc, a welder's arc, and it was as bright as a welder's arc as well. The same technology. Things have changed. They've changed now. Here I am out on the street filming, not on 35mm film, not on 16mm or 8mm film, but I'm using digital technology. And the cinema these days has progressed into the digital age. And it was George Lucas who helped to pioneer the digital cinema by using digital cameras, doing away with film cameras, and it took a while to filter into use by everybody, but mostly what you're seeing now is on film is a glorified video camera. Much better picture quality. My history with the cinema actually took me into, in the later times, through various different changes of work, but I ended up being the one of the two technicians at Braintree Cineworld. And when that opened, I was there when it opened, I was there when they were setting it up. I was there to help set up the projection booth. But when I left, digital projectors had just come in. And at the time I left, we had one digital projector. But now, every screen is digital. And you don't have a projectionist, it's all automated, and you don't get projectionists anymore. So for me, looking at the Coggeshall cinema, it's a bit of an emotional look, really. But this is a little snippet of history for Coggeshall. I didn't realise when I first started looking into Coggeshall's history that Coggeshall ever had a cinema. The cinema that was here closed in about 1959, 1960. Obviously TV was getting more and more popular, and the cinema industry had changed, and that was only a little tiny cinema. So most people had cars, the economy was vastly improved, so people could afford to go into Braintree, because there was a cinema in Braintree, or go to Colchester, because there's a big Odeon in Colchester, for their cinematic entertainment. And the way cinema was used was changed. no longer wartime. So it was more entertainment only. If people got news, they got news from the TV news. Almost every house by 1960 had television. But the cinema lasted right up into the 2000s, and it's still going now. But of course, now it is the digital age of cinema, which is a whole different ball game altogether, where you can actually have live events streamed into a cinema, and people can pay to watch live events like concerts and stuff like that. So it's no longer film, it's not movies, it's a glorified sit down and watch TV, but in a big building. But here, this is where it all stood. Now the co-op. So that's it, a little snippet. Thanks for watching, and as always, and please look after yourselves, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.